Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into the narrow back streets of Naples, the kind that only truly appear after midnight, when the tourists are gone and the city exhales into its secrets. A crooked line of laundry still sways in the wind above a dim courtyard. Somewhere, a scooter hums low and lazy, dragging its echo along cobblestone. And tucked in the second-floor flat, above a deli that smells of burned bread and lemon soap, a man with the heaviest last name in Sicily sips espresso without sugar and tries, once again, to disappear. Salvatore Riina Jr. doesn't need a title. His name alone turns heads and closes doors. Son of the infamous Toto Riina, the butcher of Corleone. He doesn't walk into Naples like a prince. He arrives like a stain, something people pretend not to see but never forget is there. And the city? It watches, not through grand gestures, but through half-shut shutters and silence behind drawn curtains. You probably wouldn't survive this life. It isn't bullets and bravado. It's quiet, tense, like knowing every smile might hide a warning. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. His morning begins the same each day. Before the light properly creeps past the blinds, before the church bells toll, and long before the nearby fishmonger hauls ice buckets into the street. Salvatore slips from bed, bare feet against cool tile, and stands quietly at the window, not watching anything in particular, just breathing. His apartment is small, humble even. A couch that still smells faintly of factory plastic, a table with one sturdy chair and one you don't dare sit in. The walls are mostly bare, save for a water stain shaped like Sardinia above the doorframe. He lives like someone who expects to leave quickly. Nothing valuable, nothing personal. Except the old Polaroid in the kitchen drawer. A photo of his father standing on a pier with an unreadable smile and a cigarette that somehow didn't make him look relaxed. Salvatore doesn't talk about his father. Not in public, not in private. But the name clings to him. Even the deli owner downstairs, Signor Bellucci, who sells cured meats and asks no questions, called him Ragazzo Riina once, as if just checking if he'd flinch. He didn't. But he also didn't buy mortadella there for 2 weeks afterward. History clings, and in this city, it seeps through the walls. Naples doesn't ask about Sicily, but it remembers headlines. It remembers body counts. And it especially remembers the day Toto Riina was captured in 1993, bundled into a police car after decades underground. Many people still think that Salvatore Jr. must know where some of those secrets were buried. Money, tapes, names. So what do you think? Do sons inherit sins? Or just the silence they grow up inside? He keeps to himself, walks only in daylight, never too fast, never too slow. Eats lunch alone at a quiet cafe on Via dei Tribunali, always at the same table, always facing the entrance. He reads the paper, but doesn't turn the pages. Some habits aren't choices. They're instructions, stitched into you by survival. The people who recognize him do so with a glance, a squint, a sudden interest in their phone screens. The ones who don't recognize him, they're louder. They laugh, they gesture. They complain about politicians and soccer in the streets. He envies them, not for their ignorance, but for their freedom to belong. His accent betrays him sometimes. Though he's careful, there are words that come too sharp. vowels that cut with that Sicilian edge. The Neapolitans catch it. They don't always say something, but a raised brow or a shift in body language is enough. And once, just once, a man at the market leaned in and muttered, "You're not from here, friend. You're hiding." He smiled, paid for his olives, walked away. Back in the apartment, behind the barely hanging curtain that separates kitchen from hallway, lies a drawer he opens once a month. Inside are letters, dozens of them, never sent. Each one begins with "Caro Papa," and none of them are kind. Some accuse, some beg. A few are just quiet retellings of mundane days. What the weather was like, what he overheard in a barber shop. One ends with, "I don't know how to wear your name without bleeding." It's not dramatic. It's not self-pity. It's arithmetic. When your father ends lives like punctuation, your legacy isn't something you wield. It's something you bury, one moment at a time. Still, there are nights when the dreams come hot and fast. Rooms with no windows. A voice shouting from behind concrete. A smell of rain and blood and something burning that never gets identified. He wakes up with his hands clenched and the sheet twisted around his ankles. On those nights, he doesn't go back to sleep. He just sits, drinks lemon water, and watches the street until dawn remembers to return. And through all of this, Naples holds its breath. Not because it fears him, but because it doesn't know what kind of Riina he intends to be. The apartment on Vico Rosario isn't glamorous. It's not the sort of place you'd expect the son of a Sicilian don to hide. But that's exactly why he chose it. Or rather, why someone chose it for him. The building tilts a little to the left, like it's tired of being upright. Its outer wall peels in places, revealing the pink paint of an older decade. There's a narrow stairwell that smells of garlic and wet stone, and the door buzzes only when it feels like it. Above the deli, past 2 flights of uneven steps and a hallway with motion lights that always flicker twice before fully coming on, Salvatore Riina Jr. lives alone. He doesn't receive guests. He doesn't bring home groceries in bulk. He never parks a car. His life is designed to be unremarkable. Until it isn't. From his window, he can see 6 other windows. Some are shuttered permanently. Some burst open with the sounds of late-night telenovelas or toddlers testing the limits of decibel tolerance. There's always laundry, always pigeons, always life. But it never reaches him. He exists just outside of it, like a radio on mute, playing a song only he remembers the lyrics to. Inside, his world is deliberately blank. No family photos, no inherited furniture, no crosses on the wall, not even the tiny plastic ones most old ladies stick beside the stove. But one thing does sit, quietly, on a shelf above the sink. A chipped ceramic ashtray with the word Corleone painted in faded cursive. Touristy, cheap, ugly even. But when he touches it, something in his chest shifts like an old drawer sticking shut. Maybe it was his mother's. Maybe it just followed him. The deli downstairs is owned by Signor Bellucci, a man who speaks more with his hands than his mouth. He sells smoked provolone, anchovy paste, and the kind of olives that require commitment. He also minds his business, with one exception. Every morning at exactly 8:12, Signor Bellucci pushes a crate of oranges against the back wall outside his door. If the crate stays untouched until noon, everything's fine. If it's gone by 10, someone has something to say. The day after Salvatore moved in, the crate vanished by 9:40. Coincidence? Maybe. But in Naples, coincidences are usually coded messages without envelopes. Salvatore noticed. Of course he did. And he didn't go downstairs for 2 days. When he finally returned for a small bag of figs, Bellucci handed him a paper sack with a small smear of ink along the bottom. Inside, scribbled onto butcher paper, "They know who lived here before you." And just like that, the apartment on Vico Rosario wasn't invisible anymore. It was noted, logged, circled on a mental map kept by people who don't use pencils. Still, he stayed, because disappearing doesn't mean running. It means blending until even your shadow forgets you exist. Each evening, Salvatore walks the neighborhood. Not far, not fast. He loops the block twice, always pausing beneath the flickering street lamp on Via dei Giudici. It's not a ritual, it's a test. If the bulb stops flickering, if it stays steady even once, he'll move. But it never does. So he stays. Most nights, he passes the same faces. The boy who juggles lemons for coins, the grandmother who sprays perfume on the Virgin Mary statue, the twins who argue in sync like a well-rehearsed comedy act, and always, always the baker. The baker, a man in his 60s with hair like whipped flour and a tan apron that somehow always looks clean. He never speaks to Salvatore, but every morning at 5 a.m. sharp, he props open the bakery's side door and lights a cigarette. Facing the alley, facing the upstairs window, facing him, the message is clear. We see you. We don't need your name to know your file. Many people still think that Naples is safer than Sicily, that the Camorra, despite their brutality, play by a more modern set of rules. But what do you think? Is organized crime really less dangerous when it smiles? That bakery is no tourist stop. Locals joke the flour is half chalk, but it remains open, even during police sweeps. And once, Salvatore saw a man in clerical robes walk out the back, brushing crumbs from his sleeve like he didn't just pray in a room full of whispers. He never went inside. Instead, he keeps his eye on the upstairs window across the courtyard. That window, never open, always curtained. And yet, sometimes, when the air is still and the piazza quiet, he sees the curtain shift. Just once. Just enough. Like someone breathing. One night, curiosity itches too hard to ignore. Salvatore sits in the dark, coffee in hand, and watches. Midnight passes. Then, 1 hour. Stillness. And then, at 1:16 a.m., the curtain moves again. Not wind, not mistake. A deliberate pull, slow and cautious. He raises his cup toward the window. A soft toast. No words. Just acknowledgement. The curtain closes again. That's the only time it happens. But the apartment on Vico Rosario feels different after that. Not threatening. Not safe. Just acknowledged. He no longer feels completely unseen. And in a strange way, that's worse. He thought he wanted obscurity. But now that he knows someone is watching, someone careful, someone practiced, it becomes clear. Obscurity was never the goal. It was the cover story. The baker's gaze becomes a fixture in Salvatore's life, like the creaking stair on the way to his apartment, or the uneven hum of the fluorescent light in the hall. It never startles him anymore. It's always there, quiet, routine. But he knows it's more than a man and his morning cigarette. The bakery's ovens burn all day, but something else cooks behind those walls. Something less flour, more favor. It begins small. On a Thursday, the baker sweeps the alley at dusk and pauses long enough to nod at Salvatore's window. The gesture is minute, almost lazy, but Salvatore catches it. Next morning, a stranger walks by the deli downstairs twice, slow the first time, pausing just slightly at the door. Then again faster, with a paper tucked under his arm. A name is spoken in a barely there breath. Riina. He freezes in the stairwell. Not because it's unexpected, but because it was always going to happen. He just didn't know who'd say it first. Naples may be dense, but it's porous. Everything leaks. Names, whispers, intentions. And in the alleys of Vico Rosario, even your silence has an accent. It isn't just who you are. It's who remembers who you could be. Later that week, Salvatore finds a note under his door. No envelope, no flourish. Just 4 words in a familiar, precise script. Lo vedono, stia calmo. They see you. Stay calm. No signature. No question. Just advice. Or a warning. He doesn't tell anyone. Of course, he doesn't tell anyone. Who would he tell? There's no friend to confess to. No confidant to weigh the message's tone. He's a one-man chessboard, always playing black pieces. One step behind, waiting to react. Still, life goes on. In the mornings, he visits the coffee kiosk near Via San Biagio. The barista there, a sunburned man named Gino, makes the bitterest espresso in Naples and seems to do so on purpose. But Gino smiles with all his teeth and always asks Salvatore how the knights are treating him. He never uses his name, and he never hands the sugar packets directly. He slides them across the counter, like every exchange is a trade. One Tuesday, as the morning breeze curls around the narrow street and the city sounds are still rubbing their eyes awake, Salvatore finds a small envelope beneath his cup. Not from Gino. It's already there, already waiting. Inside is a photograph. Aged, faint, a little grainy. But it's unmistakably his father, standing beside a man Salvatore doesn't recognize. Both wear suits that don't quite match. The stranger has his hand on Toto Riina's shoulder, like he owns him. Salvatore flips the photo. On the back, he was here too. That night, the upstairs curtain doesn't move. He doesn't sleep. He turns over the photo again and again, tracing the unknown man's jawline with his thumbnail. The mystery isn't just who the man is. It's what the message implies. Someone's telling him that his father's past isn't contained to Sicily, that the streets of Naples have longer memories than he'd assumed, that this exile might be more of a return than a retreat. The next few days unfold with an eerie rhythm. A woman at the fruit stall mentions family ties without prompt. A child offers him a gum wrapper with scribbles he can't decipher. Even the pigeons on the piazza seem to cluster near his bench like they've been told to. And then come the watchers. They're not obvious. That would be rude. But subtle men in 2 new shoes begin appearing, always alone, never still for long. One lingers near the fountain for just 20 minutes, pretending to eat a sandwich that never seems to disappear. Another leans against a wall with a paperback novel that's upside down. And once, a man he doesn't recognize greets him with, "Salvatore, right?" Then pretends he meant someone else. He begins to notice patterns. The bakery's morning cigarette shifts to 5 minutes earlier. The deli's oranges disappear before the bell even rings. And every 3rd day, someone leaves a pack of gum wedged into the stairwell railing. Always spearmint, always unopened. Many people still think that the mafia has lost its edge in modern Italy, that cell phones and surveillance have carved the sharpness off old power. But what do you think? When a legacy runs in the blood, can you ever really power wash the old codes? Back in the apartment, Salvatore tries not to imagine escape. He knows too well the futility of that thought. Instead, He takes control the only way he knows how, by choosing what not to do. He doesn't respond to the photograph. He doesn't ask Gino about the envelope. He doesn't check the bakery's back alley. And most importantly, he doesn't run. Instead, he begins documenting his days, not in the letters to his father, but in a small red notebook tucked behind the pantry's flour tin. It's cryptic, fragmented, but it's his only form of control. March 14th. Man with the scar crossed the piazza at 11:27, didn't look up. Why not? March 17th. Pigeons pecked at the gum on the bench. Who buys that brand in 2025? March 18th. No curtain shift. First time in 7 nights. It reads like a journal of small nothings. But in Naples, small nothings grow teeth. One night, during an especially restless dusk, Salvatore steps onto his small balcony. The air is still, but the street murmurs like a throat clearing in the dark. The bakery door is ajar. The alley is empty. And from somewhere nearby, a saxophone plays 3 notes, wrong and sad, like a lullaby played on an off-key memory. Salvatore lights a cigarette. He doesn't smoke. Never has. But tonight, it feels like a ritual he's inherited without ceremony. The smoke curls, lazy and soft, toward the flickering street lamp, and for a brief moment, he isn't Toto Riina's son. He isn't Naples's quiet stranger. He's just a man exhaling into a city that never stops watching. The drawer beside the stove sticks on purpose. You have to tilt it just so. Angle it upward with a firm left-hand pull, like opening a reluctant confession. Inside are the letters. Always the letters. But today, Salvatore doesn't reach for them. Instead, he pulls out a stack of yellowing envelopes, none addressed, none sealed. They're not meant to be sent. They're meant to be survived. Each one is a breath caught in paper. Some begin calmly. Today was quiet. I almost forgot who I am. Others snap like brittle glass. You took everything, and I'm still carrying the receipts. But there's one that holds his hand longer than the rest. It's dated years ago, ink blurred from where it got wet. Probably a leaking roof in Palermo. It reads only, "You said you'd protect us, but you never said from whom." He reads it 3 times, then places it beneath the chipped ceramic ashtray above the sink. Kind of offering. That morning he walks differently. Not fast, not nervous, just aware. The street isn't louder, but it feels more voiced somehow. Footsteps behind him echo sharper. The city's rhythms sound more like warnings than background. When he passes the baker isn't outside. No cigarette, no nod. That hasn't happened in weeks. He pauses mid-step, then moves on without turning his head. He's learned. In Naples, the absence of ritual is more ominous than a threat. At the cafe, Gino doesn't smile, doesn't ask about his night. He serves the espresso like it's a favor owed, not a transaction. There's no gum under the saucer, just a sugar packet with a tiny tear in the corner, spilling a grain trail like breadcrumbs from a story that doesn't want to be followed. And then, as he turns to leave, a man walks in, short, older, hair like steel wire and hands that look too soft for manual labor. Salvatore doesn't know him, but the man knows him. Their eyes meet. Just a beat. Then the man tips his head, smiles slightly. Not polite, not hostile. Familiar. Salvatore walks out without acknowledging him. But his mind loops. Who was that? That night, he doesn't cook. He sits on the couch with the lights dimmed and listens to the walls. Naples apartments always whisper. The neighbor upstairs argues with her sister again. Someone 2 floors down watches a telenovela too loudly. And across the alley, the upstairs curtain doesn't move. He wonders if the man from the cafe will be in tomorrow's dreams. He wonders if it was a test, or a message, or both. He writes again, March 22nd, Cafe Stranger. Smile like a priest in court. Gino didn't blink. March 23rd, no bakery smoke for third day. Ashes must be piling somewhere. Then it happens, late that night. A tap at the door. Not loud, not hesitant. Just two calm knocks, like a neighbor asking for salt, like someone sure they'll be let in. He doesn't move, doesn't breathe, just listens. Another knock, then silence. He waits an hour before approaching the door. No peephole. He opens it slowly. Just a crack. Nothing. But on the mat, a newspaper folded twice, crosswords filled in completely. On the back, in small blue pen, he never answered either. That's the kind of note that ages your bones. He doesn't sleep. Instead, he rereads the letters. One in particular, short, brutal. If I become half of you, I'll burn the other half. He remembers writing that after seeing footage of his father in prison. Smiling. That was the part that haunted him. Not the arrest, not the legacy, the smile. How do you sleep after knowing your last name once made entire towns silent? Many people still think that sons of mobsters either inherit the throne or run from it. But what do you think? What happens when they simply live with it, quietly, invisibly, until the past decides it wants company? By morning, the bakery is open again. But there's no flour on the steps. The windows are spotless. And for the first time, a man stands in the doorway who isn't the baker. He wears dark glasses, no apron. Salvatore walks past without pausing. But a block later, he hears it. Footsteps, one pair. He turns left down a side alley. The footsteps follow. He slips into a small church. The one with the leaning bell tower. And the saints painted in wide, unblinking eyes. He sits. Waits. The footsteps never enter. But when he finally leaves, hours later, after the candles have burned to stumps and the church bell coughs a hollow chime, he finds something under his coat, a matchbook from Palermo. He flips it open. Inside, one word written in perfect cursive. Decide. Salvatore wakes before the light, but after the dream, the kind where voices whisper names you know, but haven't said aloud in years. Where shoes scuff along corridors that don't exist. Where laughter doesn't come from mouths, just from shadows pretending to breathe. He lies still on the mattress. No sheet. Just the cotton chill of air that's too still to be comforting. In the corner, the little red notebook peeks from behind the flour tin, like it's been eavesdropping again. He gets up, opens the window, lets Naples blow through his bones. It's market day, which means the streets are louder than usual. Plastic crates slammed into vans, fish guts flung into gutters, voices competing over prices like they're arguing for sport. And Salvatore, heir to a name that once silenced city blocks, slips unnoticed through the chaos. Except, not quite. On Via del Seggio, a boy with a baseball cap turned backward bumps into him hard enough to jostle his wallet. Attento, the boy barks without looking back. Salvatore checks his pocket. Wallet's still there, but something's been added, a small folded paper. He ducks into the alcove of a shuttered bookstore, unfolds it carefully. 6 words, printed in blocky, deliberate pen. Learn the Naples you don't see. The phrase feels familiar, like something his uncle might have whispered after a drink too many. A lesson in subtext. In surviving cities that chew their own history, he heads to the trattoria, the kitchen where he slices onions and pretends not to listen. The place hums with controlled disorder. Pots banging, waiters swearing softly, oil snapping like fireworks in shallow pans. He likes it here. The chaos doesn't look at him. It's too busy burning garlic and overcooking pasta to care about lineage. But today, something's different. His prep station, usually a mess of carrots, parsley, and ragged cutting boards, has a note under the paring knife, this time typed, "Ask Enzo about the tunnels. He owes Palermo." Enzo, the dishwasher with too many tattoos and a laugh that comes half a second late. Salvatore doesn't approach him immediately. He waits, cleans, slices, pretends. But by the end of the shift, as the chef barks at someone for undersalting the sauce, he corners Enzo by the mop sink. "You owe Palermo," Salvatore says softly. Enzo's eyes twitch. Not fear, recognition. He rinses his hands too slowly, then says, "You want tunnels? Start at the church near Spaccanapoli. The one with the cracked Virgin. Basement door behind the third pew. But you didn't hear it from me." Salvatore nods once, that's all. Back home, he writes, March 28th. Naples under Naples. Why would they send me there? March 28th, 11:03 p.m. Map? He pulls out his phone. Opens a map of the old quarter. Zooms into Spaccanapoli, the thinnest vein on the city's map. A street so narrow it slices the town like a scalpel. He marks the church. That night, he doesn't dream. He calculates. Many people still think that underground tunnels in Naples are tourist traps, relics from the war or even earlier. But what do you think? What if some of them are still in use? If not for armies, then for trades less patriotic. The next morning, he heads out just after sunrise. The market smells like spoiled anchovies and lemon soap again. The usual faces are there. Gino gives him a coffee without a word. The baker nods. Barely. The church is quieter than he remembers. It leans slightly, as if tired of listening to prayers that never come true. The cracked statue of the Virgin Mary out front is smeared with ash or soot. Something old and gray. He walks in, sits behind the third pew, counts backward from 20. Then he stands, stretches, and walks toward the confessional, but detours behind the altar. There it is, a small door, painted to match the wall. Hinges rusted, but still obedient. He pulls it open. A flight of stone steps disappears beneath the floor. He descends. The air changes instantly. Damp, dense, cool. The kind of cold that doesn't care if it's summer outside. And the silence? Heavy, like breathing inside a pocket of someone else's memory. He walks. The tunnel is narrow, carved long ago, long before electricity and cell signals. Walls damp. The floor uneven. He turns left at the fork. That's when he sees it. Graffiti. Not modern spray paint tags, but chalk. Dozens of names scrawled in cursive, some crossed out, some underlined. In the middle, one word, Riina. He stares at it for a long time, then he steps past it. Doesn't touch it. Doesn't pause, because in Naples, even ghosts know how to spell. Farther in, he finds a table, more like a crate. On it, a single item, an old flip phone. Battery still inside. Taped to the back is a note. 3 missed calls. No new messages. He pockets it, turns back, and walks slowly, not with fear, but with caution earned the hard way. That night, in his apartment, the curtain across the alley moves again, but this time it doesn't close. It stays open, and in the darkness behind it, someone lifts a hand. Not a wave, not a threat, a signal, something between, "We know you went down there, and now you're part of it." He doesn't turn on the light. Not that night. He lets the city outside illuminate the room in fragments. The neon flicker from the kebab shop on the corner, the passing headlights slicing shadows across the wall, the dim gold from the upstairs window where the curtain no longer guards its secrets. Salvatore stands still, staring at the flip phone now resting on his kitchen counter. It looks out of place, like a ghost from the early 2000s accidentally wandered into a crime novel. He doesn't open it. He doesn't need to. 3 missed calls, no messages, battery still full. That's not a mistake. It's bait. And somewhere in Naples, Someone is waiting to see if he bites. He walks to the window, hands in his pockets. From this angle, he can't see into the watcher's room. Only the glow. Only the knowledge that someone decided not to hide anymore. He could close the curtain. He doesn't. Instead, he sits down and writes, March 30th, 3 calls, all silence. I didn't answer, and yet I feel like I already did. March 30th, 11:52 p.m., window open. On invitation, Naples is still alive outside. Always is. Even now, a scooter buzzes like a broken promise through the alley. A woman yells at a cat in dialect older than war. The bakery door creaks open for someone who isn't buying bread, and inside, the son of a Don waits for his father's ghost to call again. The next morning, the flip phone rings, 6:07 a.m., sharp, digital, unfriendly. He watches it vibrate against the counter, a little dance of nerves and plastic. Then silence, no voicemail, no repeat. But something has shifted. At 7, the bakery's alley door creaks. Not for a cigarette, for a visitor. A man in a clean suit, beige and too light for spring, walks inside, stays exactly 13 minutes, leaves without a bag. No eye contact, no wasted movement. By 8, Salvatore's doorbell rings. He never hears his doorbell. No one ever uses it. He opens cautiously. A boy, maybe 12. Cheeks flushed, red jacket zipped up to his chin. He doesn't speak. Just hands over a parcel wrapped in butcher paper and tied with twine. Then bolts down the stairs without waiting for acknowledgement. Salvatore closes the door, places the parcel on the counter beside the flip phone. It smells faintly of fennel and rust. Inside, a loaf of bread, hollowed. In the center, a cassette tape wrapped in plastic and a single photograph. This time he knows the other man, Giuseppe Di Matteo, the boy kidnapped in the 90s, held for over 2 years, killed because his father turned state witness. One of the most tragic, gruesome chapters in Mafia history. The photo is of the boy, aged around 10, standing next to Salvatore. He remembers the day. He'd forgotten the face. His throat tightens. The room spins just slightly, not with fear, but with shame. He never spoke about Giuseppe, never asked questions. It was family business, and in families like his, business rarely forgave curiosity, but someone wants him to remember now. He picks up the cassette, no label. He doesn't own a player. No one under 50 does, but he knows where to find one. Downstairs, Bellucci's Deli has one, kept on the shelf above the cash register, half covered in sausage catalogs and a calendar from 2008. He walks down, cool as possible, parcel wrapped again in plain brown. Bellucci looks up, doesn't speak. Salvatore points to the tape deck. Bellucci doesn't nod, but he steps aside. The machine wheezes to life. The tape clicks. Then a voice. Male. Deep. Not his father, but close. You don't inherit power. You carry it until someone decides you've earned it, or until it breaks your spine. Naples has decided. Now we see what kind of spine you've got. Then static. Then nothing. He rewinds, plays again. Same voice, same chill. On his way out, Bellucci offers him a package of prosciutto. Free. That's never a gift. It's a message. We heard it too. Many people still think the Mafia died with the arrests of the old guard, that Riina's downfall fractured everything beyond repair. But what do you think? When a name like his still opens alley doors and resurrects old tapes, is it truly gone? Or just evolving? Back home, the curtain across the alley is closed again, but the note tucked under his door isn't subtle. Tonight, rooftop, bring no questions. It's unsigned, of course. That evening, he climbs the back stairs. An iron fire escape older than the television antenna it once supported. It groans like it's remembering every time someone tried to escape this way. The rooftop is empty, until it isn't. A man steps from behind the laundry lines. Tall, thin, scarf wrapped unnecessarily around his neck. He speaks with a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. You saw the boy. You heard the tape. So tell me, Riina, Do you want to keep hiding in this city? Or do you want to speak its language again? Salvatore doesn't answer. He doesn't have to, because the man already knows. He lights a cigarette, offers one. Salvatore declines. Smart, the man says. Breath is better currency these days. He walks away without saying goodbye. Salvatore stays on the roof, watching the sea in the far distance. Naples glitters like a lie well told, and beneath it all, tunnels keep breathing. Morning arrives not as sunlight, but as noise. Naples waking itself with horns, bells, and clattering shutters. Salvatore sits on the edge of his bed, the flip phone still face down on the table. He hasn't moved it since the call. Hasn't turned it off either. It's like a dog he didn't ask for, but can't bring himself to abandon. He dresses slowly. Black jeans, navy sweater, nothing with a collar. The rooftop meeting left a taste in his mouth that no coffee will fix. Not fear, not anticipation, just recognition. Like finally catching your reflection in a window you didn't know was mirrored. Downstairs, Bellucci says nothing, just hands him a small espresso to go, topped with a card that reads, Via Foria, 2 p.m., bench by the pharmacy. There's a faint smear of olive oil on the corner, like it was written between slicing mortadella and swatting a fly. He pockets the card, doesn't react, doesn't speak. The deli door clicks shut behind him like a vault ceiling. Naples is already sticky with spring. The air smells of wet stone, citrus, and diesel. A cocktail only this city can make you nostalgic for. He walks the long way to Via Foria, through neighborhoods where his name means less, and suspicion comes in more casual forms. At exactly 2 p.m., he sits on the designated bench, beside the pharmacy, in view of 3 reflective windows, 2 exits, 1 tree. Just as trained, he waits 12 minutes. Then she arrives, mid-30s, auburn hair in a messy bun, wearing oversized sunglasses and a denim jacket too warm for the weather. She doesn't sit. She stands, speaks without turning to face him. You're not your father. That's good. But you're not invisible either. That's inconvenient. Salvatore says nothing. She continues. There are people who want your silence. There are people who want your voice. And there are people who want your usefulness. Do you know which one you are? He looks up, finally speaks. Which are you? She almost smiles. Today, I'm the messenger. She drops a small slip of paper on the bench beside him and walks off, not looking back. Not speeding up. Just dissolving into the Neapolitan crowd like sugar into hot espresso. The paper reads, Nunzio, Café di Luce, tomorrow. Don't order anything. He doesn't need to ask who Nunzio is. That name drifts like cigarette smoke through old Palermo stories. A man who never touched a gun but made generals vanish with a phone call. A man who was once said to have played chess with 2 bishops. Actual bishops. Salvatore sleeps little that night. He dreams of cassette tapes unspooling into spider webs, of tunnels shifting like intestines beneath the streets, of his father, head bowed, whispering, You think hiding makes you honest? He wakes with a dry mouth and a sharper spine. At noon, he arrives at Café de Luce. The place is upscale, too clean, too bright. It doesn't fit the story of Nunzio. But then again, neither does the man himself. Seated in the far corner, half shadowed by an overgrown ficus, is a man in his 70s. Linen suit, dark glasses, hands folded like he's praying or waiting for someone who already disappointed him. Salvatore sits across without speaking. Nunzio raises a hand, slowly, not to greet, just to begin. You've seen the alleys, the watchers, the tape. You think you're the only one who's been chosen, ragazzo? Salvatore leans in, elbows on the table. Chosen for what? Nunzio doesn't blink. for reminding Naples what silence costs. A waitress appears, but Nunzio waves her off with a twitch of 2 fingers. He continues, "Your father knew fear. He harvested it like olives, but fear rots. It spoils. Now we deal in memory, nostalgia, recognition." He takes off his glasses. His eyes are pale gray, almost translucent. They don't need another Riina. They need someone who smells like one but tastes new. Salvatore almost laughs. "You want me to be a symbol?" Nunzio shakes his head. "I want you to be a scent in the wind, familiar, faint, and impossible to ignore." He slides a small USB stick across the table. No label, no preamble. "What's on it?" Salvatore asks. "Names, old ones. Yours is on there, of course. Has been since you were born." Salvatore doesn't touch it. "Why give this to me?" Nunzio smiles, and it's not a kind smile, because no one else would understand the weight of not using it. He stands, no handshake, no goodbye, just one sentence as he turns away. "Next time, bring a clean name." Salvatore leaves the cafe 10 minutes later. No one follows, but everyone feels like they might. Back in his apartment, he places the USB stick on the table beside the flip phone. Then he sits. Then he waits. Later, just past 1 a.m., the alley curtain moves again, but this time the window doesn't close. A light turns on, and in that soft, yellow glow, a man appears. He holds a cup. Maybe tea, maybe something stronger. He raises it in a toast. Salvatore nods just slightly. It's not alliance, not surrender, just acknowledgement. Many people still think that being born into a name means inheriting a fate. But what do you think? What if it just means being handed a map to a war that no one wants to fight anymore? Downstairs, the city exhales. A bottle breaks. A laugh echoes. Somewhere, a deal is being whispered over a plate of cold pasta, and Salvatore Riina Jr. remains where he is, half air, half question mark, entirely observed. The knife is still there under the floorboard by the stove. He found it during his 2nd week in the apartment, wrapped in cloth, handle worn smooth by time or tension. Hard to tell. He didn't move it, didn't touch it, just noted it like a date you don't want to remember, but somehow always do. Now, it feels like it's breathing. The city has changed around him, quietly, subtly, like a stage adjusting its lights without pausing the scene. Every face he passes feels aware. Every silence feels rehearsed. Even the pigeons seem to pause mid-strut to check who he's become. At the cafe, Gino slides him espresso without a word. Just a folded receipt, blank side up. On it, a name, Matteo Licata, a date, April 6th, and a time, 4:20 p.m. He doesn't ask. He doesn't need to. Because in Naples, once names start arriving on paper, it means someone believes you're part of the machine now, even if you still think you're just leaning on the switchboard. Back in the apartment, he stares at the name. Matteo Licata. He's heard it before. A mid-tier fixer. Known more for being careful than dangerous. The kind of man who arranges without touching. Who connects dots and never asks why those dots start bleeding afterward. The meeting is likely a test, or worse, a job. He spends the morning pacing, not rehearsing, just listening to the wood creak beneath his feet, to the church bells behind the bakery, to the tension in the city's breath. Then, almost without thinking, he pulls up the floorboard. The knife waits, unchanged. He holds it, not to use, just to feel what it meant to someone else. It's heavier than expected, balanced, real. He returns it to its place, presses the board down with quiet finality, and leaves for the meeting. Via Manzoni is busy at this hour, too busy for something serious, which is exactly why it's chosen. Crowds dilute intention. Eyes blur in motion. Salvatore arrives at the tram bench precisely on time. Matteo Licata is already there. You wouldn't notice him unless you were looking. Gray sweater, paper in hand, shoes too clean for the grit of Naples. But Salvatore sees what matters, the way the man never actually turns a page, the angle of his wrist beneath the newspaper. Alert, not relaxed. Licata speaks first. You're taller than I expected. Salvatore shrugs. That disappoint you? Only surprises me. You were shorter in the photos. Ah, so someone has the archives. Licata folds the paper, doesn't look at him directly. You've been visited, watched, warned, but never offered. Salvatore raises an eyebrow. Offered what? Work, Licata says, as casually as asking for a cigarette. Purpose. You mean crime? No, Licata replies. I mean placement. You're not being asked to kill anyone. You're being asked to remind people how powerful a last name can be when it shows up quietly in the background. Salvatore exhales through his nose. And if I say no? Licata shrugs. Then you go back to slicing onions, pretending no one knows who you are. But you and I both know that ends when someone decides it ends. Might not be me, might not be now, but it ends. He stands. You have 3 days. Salvatore doesn't ask for what, because 3 days is always the same question. Will you become what they think you are? Or will you force them to invent something else? Many people still think mafia loyalty is about blood, family ties, generational debts. But what do you think? What if it's just convenience that calcifies into myth until even the myths start paying rent? That night, the curtain across the alley remains open, but there's no watcher, just a small lamp burning yellow and a book left on the windowsill. The Leopard, a Sicilian novel, a meditation on change, on how everything must transform so that it can stay the same. He smiles just slightly. A joke or a message? The next morning, a postcard arrives in his mailbox. No stamp, no address, just an image of Palermo's coastline. On the back, your father refused. That's why he ruled. You have other options. No signature. He places the card on the table beside the flip phone, the USB stick, and the parcel string still tied in a knot. His apartment has become a museum of unasked-for inheritance. He writes, April 4, Licata, 3 days, no threat but all pressure. April 4th, 10:47 a.m. The book in the window wasn't accidental. April 4th, 11:10 a.m. Am I being offered power or asked to become part of someone else's camouflage? The question itches. He walks to the roof again that night, watches the sea. Naples always performs at dusk. The city throws its golden light across stone walls and broken shutters, hoping you'll forget how much of it is held together by rust and memory. On the third step down, he finds something new, a folded handkerchief. Inside, a ring, gold, flat, inscribed on the inside, SR. It's not his, but it's close enough. He doesn't put it on. Not yet. He just closes his hand around it and wonders if the initials are meant to be his future, or someone else's reminder that no matter what path he takes, it already has a name. The ring stays on the counter for 2 days. He doesn't touch it again, doesn't wear it, just watches it as he passes through the apartment like it might blink first. Gold, subtle, but weighty, like a whisper with consequences. The inscription feels deliberate, a dare almost. SR could be Salvatore Riina, could be someone else. But in this city, initials are just fingerprints hiding in plain sight. The deadline approaches. Licata's clock ticks louder with each hour, even though no one says a word. That's how pressure works here. Not through shouting or threats, but through expectation coiled tight in silence. On the morning of the third day, Salvatore walks the long way through the Spanish Quarter. He pretends he's there for the view, for the peeling murals and the scent of basil hanging from third-floor windows. But he's really there for the barber. He hasn't had a haircut in months, but the barber, Vincenzo, has a memory like a ledger. and a way of speaking in half sentences that make full stories. "Sit," the man says. No hello, no small talk. Just a cape and a pair of shears older than either of them. Snip, silence, snip. "You hear from Palermo?" Salvatore watches the floor. "You tell me." Vincenzo chuckles. "Then you have." A pause, then quieter. "You know what they used to call your father?" Salvatore nods. "Ukurtu." "The short one." Vincenzo leans in, lowering his voice like a priest in confession. He was short because he cut everything else down around him. Snip, silence. "You gonna be the same?" "I don't know yet." The barber finishes the cut, dusts his neck, and leans closer. "You don't have to answer me, but you'll have to answer someone, soon." Salvatore pays, tips, and leaves. The back of his neck feels lighter. Not just from the haircut. On the way home, he buys a pack of gum and a lighter. He doesn't chew. He doesn't smoke. The purchases are a signal to himself more than anything else. Rituals that mimic control. That afternoon, a car pulls up in front of the deli. It's sleek, not flashy. Black with tinted windows that reflect just enough of the world to stay mysterious. No one gets out. No horn. But the deli door opens. Bellucci comes outside, lights a cigarette, then walks down the block. That's his message. It's time. Salvatore walks down. The back door of the car clicks open. He gets in. The man inside isn't Licata. It's someone older, thinner, dressed like a funeral that's been postponed too many times. He doesn't introduce himself, just gestures to a folder on the seat between them. Salvatore picks it up. Inside, names, photos, maps, a route through Naples that ends at a warehouse near the port. "You're not expected to act," the man says. "Just to be seen." "By who?" The man smiles gently. "By everyone who's been waiting to see if the sun has teeth." Salvatore closes the folder. "I haven't said yes." The man shrugs. "You got in the car." That night he walks again. Not through alleys, but rooftops. Naples from above is a tangle of terraces and shadows. The kind of place where deals echo off chimney tops and disappear into laundry lines. He crosses 5 roofs before pausing. From here he can see the sea, the port, the warehouse. He pulls out the USB stick. It's warm from his pocket. He doesn't plug it in. He just throws it off the roof, watches it arc through the air and vanish into someone's unsuspecting life. A decision. Back at the apartment, the flip phone rings again. He answers. Nothing. Then, after a long pause, a voice, familiar, female. "You think that means you're out?" He doesn't reply. "You're not out, Salvatore. You're never out. But you might be in your own way." Click. The line dies. Many people still think that walking away from a legacy means leaving it behind. But what do you think? What if walking away just means changing the direction it follows you? He places the phone next to the ring, then picks up the ring, traces the SR, and places it on the windowsill, facing the alley. A reply. The next morning, the window across the alley is open again. The light is off, the curtain still, but pinned to the glass is a note. "Good choice. Now let's see what they do with it." Salvatore smiles, just slightly. Not victory, not defeat, just permission. The warehouse is exactly where the folder said it would be, tucked at the far end of the port, where the salt air gets thick and cranes hang like drunk insects over cargo no one ever inspects too closely. By day, it blends in. Rusted metal doors, walls stained by decades of sea mist and secrets. But by night, it becomes something else entirely. Less structure, more signal. He walks there just after dusk, unaccompanied. That's the only way the message works. People see him. He makes sure of it. 2 dock workers glance up from loading crates. One mutters something to the other. A man smoking by a forklift drops his gaze and looks away. Not in fear, but in habit. The name Riina still writes itself into the backs of throats without needing to be spoken aloud. At the door, a man waits. Not a guard, just a presence. Broad, arms crossed, eyes scanning. "You know where you're going?" the man asks, voice flat. No, Salvatore replies. Good, means you're supposed to be here. He steps aside. Inside, the space yawns wide. Half storage, half theater. The lights are dim, puddling onto polished floors where none should be. A few crates, a few chairs, and a table set with a carafe of water and 2 glasses, like a meeting that ended just before he arrived. A woman stands in the center, the same one from the pharmacy bench. Denim jacket gone, replaced by a blazer too crisp for dockland dust. She holds a file folder, different from the last, slightly thicker. Red tab. Salvatore, she says, voice softer now. Tonight's not about questions. It's about demonstration. He nods once, doesn't sit. She opens the folder. 3 names, all local, all liabilities. We don't need them touched. We need them noticed. We want your name. To visit them. He says nothing. She steps closer. No threats, just your face. Just a reminder that even ghosts still cast shadows. He takes the folder, reads the names. He knows none of them personally. But the last name on the list sticks. Altobelli. He's heard it whispered in the trattoria, in stories told at half volume over bad wine and good alibis. You want me to haunt them? He asks. The woman smiles. Exactly. You're not the Don, but you're the echo of one. He doesn't commit, but he doesn't return the folder either. They don't shake hands. He walks out into the night, carrying a name heavier than any pistol. Back in the apartment, he places the folder on the kitchen table beside the ring and the phone. He stares at the trio like a jury convened in silence. Then, slowly, methodically, he tears the folder in half. Not in defiance. In negotiation, he writes 3 letters instead, to each man. Handwritten, measured, not threatening, just informative. Reminders that choices ripple. That sometimes what you see walking down your street is the result of a decision you made in a moment you thought no one was watching. He mails them the next day. No return address. But he knows they'll know. And Naples? Naples always knows. Many people still think that the criminal underworld thrives on violence, on deals made in basements under flickering lights. But what do you think? What if the real game now is reputation maintenance, like corporate PR, but with better shoes and worse consequences? The next afternoon, Gino gives him a pastry with his coffee. First time ever. Inside the pastry, a small piece of wax paper. 1 word scribbled in red ink. Accepted, he writes that night. April 9th, folder declined, letter sent, reaction observed. April 9th, 11:04 p.m. I didn't join, I was absorbed. That night, a knock at the door. He doesn't flinch. He opens it slowly. No one's there. But taped to the door frame is a newspaper clipping. Headline, Altobelli cancels construction bid, cites personal reassessment. The ripple has begun. He walks to the window. The curtain across the alley flutters. No figure. Just movement. Like someone nodding in darkness. He whispers to no one in particular. You asked for my name. Now you get the version I haven't met yet. Sleep comes easier that night. No dreams. No tape recorders. No boys with red jackets and heavy silences. Just the sound of Naples breathing. And the city, for once, not holding its breath. It rains the next morning. The kind of rain Naples specializes in. Short, sharp, with no warning. Like the city just needed to exhale something sour and didn't care who got soaked. From his window, Salvatore watches the water carve lines down the alley walls. The pigeons have retreated. The bakery door stays closed, and the usual voices are muffled behind closed shutters. It's a rare pause. And in a city that never truly sleeps, pauses mean someone is repositioning the board. He skips his usual cafe stop. Instead, he walks down toward the marina, jacket collar up, hands in his pockets. The port is slick with rain and movement. Men in ponchos shout over crates of oranges. A stray dog drips beside a bollard, watching seagulls with military precision. Salvatore isn't here for any of them. He turns left at the pier, where rust eats at the railings, and finds the old signal booth, long defunct, now used more for discreet conversations than directing ships. He opens the door and steps into the shadows. Someone's already waiting. Nunzio. No scarf today. Just a plain overcoat and a plastic bag with 2 sandwiches. One for him, one for Salvatore. Neither of them eats. Nunzio speaks first. You didn't follow the plan. Salvatore leans against the wall. I didn't reject it either. You scared them. That was the point. Nunzio nods slowly. Maybe you are your father's son. I didn't break anything. No. You reminded them something could be broken. They sit in silence for a moment, the rain ticking like a metronome on the rusted roof. Then Nunzio reaches into his coat and pulls out a folded piece of paper. From Palermo, he says. They want to meet. Salvatore doesn't take it. Not yet. You told them I declined. Nunzio shrugs. Declined. Deviated. Danced. They're not interested in obedience. They're interested in effect. He takes the paper but doesn't open it. Instead, he asks, what do they want? Nunzio smirks. What everyone wants, ragazzo. To know which way you'll tip the balance. He leaves without eating, without saying goodbye. The paper remains unopened in Salvatore's coat until nightfall. When he finally unfolds it, he finds coordinates. A time. No names. Just a sentence at the bottom. Come alone or come undone. He burns the paper. Not in rejection, but to make sure only he remembers what it said. That night he writes, April 11th, Palermo sends an invitation, not a request. April 11th, 9:32 p.m. The rain washed the faces clean. I saw who's still watching. He doesn't sleep. He walks. Naples under rain is a different city. Reflections double the alleys. Every corner feels like a choice, and the cobblestones glisten like secrets finally allowed to breathe. He ends up on the rooftop again. From here, everything feels slower. The city below shrinks into blur and hum. The light in the window across the alley is off, but the curtain is open. Always open now. It's no longer surveillance. It's mutual observation. He sips espresso from a thermos, watches steam mingle with the fog. He's no longer hiding, but he's not arriving either. He's becoming. Many people still think the mafia thrives on violence, that without blood, the system collapses. But what do you think? What if the new economy is reputation, and names are traded like stocks? The next day, he visits Gino. Gino gives him coffee without words, then slips him a small black box. Inside, a phone. Modern, sleek, one contact preloaded. No number, just the name. Zia. He stares at it. The Riina family has never been big on ants. He puts the phone away. On the walk home, he stops by a small stationery shop and buys a new notebook. Red, like the first. But this one has a lock. He walks slower now. Not out of fear, out of calculation. Every step is a message now. Every presence a performance. That night, the black phone buzzes once. Just a vibration. He opens it. A message. Naples is watching how you carry Palermo's silence. No reply option. Just a blinking cursor that fades after 5 seconds. He closes the phone and places it next to the flip phone. The USB no longer there. The ring back on the windowsill. The city outside doesn't exhale this time. It waits. Salvatore leans against the window. Whispers, let's see how deep this stage goes. By the end of that week, Naples no longer feels like a hiding place. It feels like a lens. Everything sharper, clearer, focused on him. But not for who he was or who his father made him. Now it's for what he might do next. The black phone sits mute on the table beside the older flip phone, like a timeline he hasn't chosen between. One past, one future. Both staring at him with blank, blinking lights. The only thing that moves freely is the rain, returning each afternoon like a friend with bad timing. He visits Bellucci less now, not because of tension, because of clarity. The deli man has shifted too. His nods are slower. The meat paper is always folded tighter. and the last time Salvatore stopped by, there were no olives in his bag. Just a small envelope, sealed with tape. Inside a clipping, an old one. A 1995 article from Il Giornale di Sicilia, yellowed and brittle. Headline: Salvatore Riina's son spotted outside court. Below it, a grainy photo. A teenager in a too big coat, head down, flanked by men with sunglasses and nowhere near enough patience. Salvatore stares at the image for a long time. Not because he remembers the day, because he doesn't. Not a single detail. It's like his memory blacked out to make space for something more important. Survival. He tucks the clipping into his new red notebook, not as a keepsake, as evidence of how long people have been watching him, of how long he's been playing someone else's role. That evening, he boards a tram out of the city center, heads west, toward the cliffs that shoulder Posillipo, where the air is cleaner, the shadows longer, and the buildings whisper in a different register. He's not going to a meeting. He's going to a funeral. Not of a person, of a version of himself. The tram rumbles past graffiti, past churches older than countries, past narrow gaps where life thrives too closely packed to ever fully rest. He exits at a small square where a newsstand leans like it's tired of standing, and a cat sleeps on top of a pizza box like royalty. The address from the burned letter leads him here. A villa, faded pink, gated, unmarked. The gate opens when he gets close. A woman in her 60s greets him. Sharp eyes, calm posture, a kind of presence that suggests she once made terrible men weep without raising her voice. "You're late," she says. "I wasn't invited," Salvatore replies. She smiles slightly. "That's how you know it's serious." She leads him through a courtyard with cracked tiles and an olive tree that seems too tall for the space. Inside, the villa smells of wood polish and forgotten incense. Books line the walls. No photos, just paintings. Abstract, angry, deliberate. "You don't know who I am," she says as they sit in a study. "I know your code name. That's not who I am." "No," Salvatore says, "but it's probably close." She pours tea. No sugar offered. "You've done well," she says. "You've scared the right people. That's valuable." "I didn't mean to." "No one means to. That's why it works." She slides a folder across the table. He doesn't open it. "I'm not taking jobs." "It's not a job. Then what is it?" She leans back. "It's a map of what's being shaped around you. Not by you, around you, while you wait to decide if you want to shape something back." He places a hand on the folder, doesn't lift it. "Why me?" "You're the last name anyone wants to admit they remember." Outside, thunder grumbles like a threat that forgot its cue. Salvatore stands. He leaves the folder behind, but he pockets the tea napkin. A habit now. Notes can hide anywhere. Back in the apartment, the lights flicker. Just once. He walks to the window. The alley is quiet. The curtain across the way is gone, removed entirely. The window remains open. The room behind it now empty, as if the watcher finally stood up and walked out mid-scene. On his table, the black phone buzzes again. This time, it's a photo of him, taken that morning, leaning against the tram window. Blurred, but unmistakably him. The caption reads, "Visibility achieved, now what?" He turns the phone over, doesn't answer. Many people still think visibility is power, that once you're seen, you're feared. But what do you think? What if visibility is just the bait, and someone else is holding the hook? That night he dreams, not of his father, but of himself, walking down a long corridor, past mirrors that don't reflect him. At the end of the hall, a door. He opens it. Inside is a room filled with voices saying his name, and none of them sound the same. The next morning, Naples is bright again, indifferent, alive, and chewing on its usual chaos. But inside the apartment on Vico Rosario, Salvatore doesn't move for a long time. He sits at the table, elbows resting on the wood like they've always belonged there, staring at the black phone and the single image still glowing on its screen. himself, on a tram. A moment he didn't know was being claimed. He deletes the photo, then powers the phone off. The silence that follows isn't peace. It's anticipation. By 10 a.m., a knock at the door. He knows the rhythm now. 3 knocks. Pause. 1 knock. Not Bellucci, not the baker. He opens it. A boy again. Different from the first. Maybe 14. Lean, sharp-eyed, too quiet for his age. He hands over a brown envelope, taped shut. No markings, then vanishes down the stairs before Salvatore can speak. Inside, a map of the old Spanish Quarter. Certain alleys are marked in red, others in green. A single line of handwriting at the bottom reads, "Walk the green, observe the red." No name, no contact, but it smells faintly of motor oil and incense. Familiar now. So he walks. Late morning sun bleeds through laundry lines. Radios blare football commentary and pop songs from 2 decades ago. But beneath the color and noise, there's a rhythm to the quarter that only shows itself when you're looking. The green alleys are alive. Shops open, kids playing, neighbors arguing about whose turn it is to move the trash bins. The red? Still. A cat stares from a windowsill like it's guarding something. A curtain twitches, then freezes. In one, a priest stands silently outside a shuttered pizzeria, murmuring into a burner phone. He doesn't linger. He just walks. Slowly, purposefully, like someone tracing the edge of something that's already cracked. Halfway through the route, a woman in a green apron hands him a bag of chestnuts. "I didn't pay for these," he says. She winks. "They're not for eating." Inside, beneath the roasted shells, a photo. A man, mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, seated at a restaurant table with a woman laughing beside him. At first glance, it's nothing, but Salvatore recognizes the background. It's the trattoria where he slices onions, where the chef handed him a note scribbled in ink meant for marinara. He returns that night for his shift. The chef says nothing, just points to the prep station. The onions are already peeled. Instead, he's handed a paring knife and a small sack of herbs. "Make the blend," the chef says. There's no recipe, but somehow, Salvatore knows exactly what to do. As he works, voices murmur in the back room. Low, serious. A few syllables in Sicilian that cling to the ear like damp smoke. Then a name, Altobelli. Again. The man who backed down after Salvatore's letters found their mark. "He's shifting sides again," one voice says. "Does he know about the sun?" "Not yet, but he will." He slices mint too finely, starts over, keeps his hands busy. He's not supposed to be listening, but they know he hears. That's the point. Many people still think the underworld passes messages in briefcases or threats. But what do you think? What if it moves through recipes, mismatched herbs, and who peels the onions on what day? After his shift, the chef gives him a small paper bag. Inside, nothing. But in the seam of the fold, carefully wedged, a playing card, the Queen of Spades. He flips it over, a name written in ballpoint pen, F. Romano. That night, back in the apartment, he adds the card to the table beside the red notebook. The black phone stays off, but the flip phone rings. One buzz. No number, just a text. The Queen wants to meet. He doesn't respond, but he writes, April 13th, green routes are safe corridors. Red partout watch zones. The game's visible now. April 13th, 10:02 p.m. The Queen, new name. Probably not literal. Probably power with polish. He sleeps poorly, dreams in fragments. F. Romano laughing at a table. A priest with no face blessing an empty map. His father turning away, again and again, each time smaller than the last. He wakes to birds and silence. Too much of both. Across the alley, the window is now bricked up. Not boarded. Bricked. Someone's erased the watcher's post like it was a mistake in an old newspaper. A soft knock on his door. This time, not a child. A woman. Late 30s. Gray coat. Clear eyes. No introduction. Just follow me. No van. No car. just streets. Winding, slow, unhurried. She points out no landmarks, speaks only once. Romano doesn't repeat herself, so listen the first time. They arrive at a villa near Mergelina, smaller than the last. Guarded by nothing but a fountain filled with coins, no one seems brave enough to steal. Inside, F. Romano waits, hair pinned back, jewelry minimal, a single ring with a small black stone. She gestures to the chair across from her. He sits. She studies him like a blueprint with the corners burned. You've been making choices, she says. I've been surviving. Same thing. She doesn't offer coffee or threats. Just a question. Do you believe in legacy? He doesn't answer. She nods as if expecting silence, then leans forward. Legacy is just memory with muscle. And memory without muscle? That's history. We don't work in history, Salvatore. He breathes slowly. What do you want from me? Romano smiles, not wide, not warm. I want to see how you carry a name like a scalpel, not a hammer. She stands, walks away. A man appears in the hallway with a coat in hand. Not his. Inside the pocket, a single key, stamped D4. No address, no map, but he knows the format. An old bank vault code, the kind that predates digital systems, the kind his father used. As he exits, Romano's voice drifts behind him. Decide what kind of ghost you want to become. The key feels heavier than it should. He doesn't know if it's brass or gilt, but either way, it drags against his coat pocket like it's trying to anchor him to something he hasn't agreed to yet. D4, old-style vault key. Which bank? Which decade? He'll have to find out. But not yet. Not today. He leaves the villa near Mergelina as the sun starts slipping behind the sea. The horizon glows the color of rust and old wine. Naples does that. Bleeds beauty through its bruises. He walks. No destination, just movement. Through the narrow veins of the city, past couples arguing in doorways, past children kicking plastic bottles, past a man singing Sinatra too loud on a borrowed radio. At a corner, a boy selling bootleg DVDs offers him a copy of The Godfather. €3, the boy says. Better than real life. Salvatore almost laughs. Almost. He buys it. Back at the apartment, he doesn't watch it. He places it on the table with everything else. The ring, the red notebook, the playing card, and now, the key. The collection has grown. So has the question. What exactly is he building here? The next morning, Bellucci hands him a loaf of bread, unsliced, still warm. Inside the bag, tucked into the heel of the crust, is a flash drive. This game has moved on from cassette tapes and burner phones. Technology evolves. Messages still hide in carbs. He plugs the drive into the cafe's back office computer, using the excuse that their receipt printer needs resetting. On it, video. Grainy, shaky. Taken from a second-story window, looking down onto a street he doesn't recognize at first. Then he sees the sign. Trattoria Marcella, his old kitchen. In the footage, a man steps out of a car, speaks to someone out of frame. Behind him, another man stands watch. Then, from inside the restaurant, Altobelli appears, alive, moving, smiling. The conversation is cordial, maybe even warm, but Altobelli's eyes dart, nervous, guilty. The camera zooms, captures the license plate, holds steady, then cuts out. Attached is a document. One paragraph typed. Altobelli is folding again. Your name didn't hold him. Another did. The next time we won't warn you. D4 is where the old safeguards sleep. He closes the file, pulls the flash drive, walks outside, and throws it into the trash without looking back. He knows what D4 is now. Not a bank vault. A storage vault. One of the underground ones. Not government run. Private. Legacy. Mostly unused. Mostly untraceable. He makes the call that evening. Uses a payphone on Via Toledo. The kind they haven't ripped out yet. Probably because even the city forgot it exists. He dials. 3 rings. A voice answers. Robotic. Female. Vault code? D4. Name? Then Reina. A pause, then time and location sent. He hangs up. An hour later, a boy on a motorbike delivers an envelope to the cafe. No name, no words, just the address of the vault and a number, 2:11 a.m. He sleeps until 1:30, wakes like someone pressing play on an unfinished sentence, dresses quietly. Black coat, gloves, not for crime, for memory. His father always wore gloves when it was serious. The vault is hidden beneath a small antique bookstore. He's walked past it before, never noticed the door beside the display window. At exactly 2:11 it clicks open. Inside, cold air, dim lights, cement steps spiraling down, the smell of dust and steel, and something old enough to be sacred. Unit D4 is near the end of the corridor. A keyhole, no buzzer, no fingerprint. He inserts the key, turns. The door opens with a sigh. Inside is a single metal box, no bigger than a suitcase. He drags it out. On the lid, a mark burned into the surface. His father's initials, TR. He opens it. Inside paper, hundreds of pages, typed, stapled, many annotated in the margins in clean, blocky handwriting. Names, contracts, transfers, blackmail. Every move the Riina name ever made post-1984. It's a family ledger, a playbook, a map of control. In one envelope near the bottom, he finds photographs, Polaroids, some of people still alive, some not. In one of them, Nunzio, young, holding a phone and smiling next to a man now buried with 5 names. No one speaks anymore. He closes the lid, locks the box, and walks out. Many people still think the past is dead, that once buried, it stays still. But what do you think? What if the past isn't buried at all, just waiting patiently in a locked box, hoping you'll come find it? At 3:40 a.m., he places the box in the corner of his apartment, doesn't open it again, just places a single sticky note on the lid. To be decided. He turns off the lights. Across the alley, the bricked window still glows faintly behind the wall. He whispers, "I see it now, the story I'm in." And for once no one whispers back. The box sits like a secret no longer interested in hiding. It doesn't hum or whisper, but its presence is loud. Salvatore doesn't need to open it again. He already knows. Once something like that enters your home, it enters your bloodstream. He lives with it now. That morning, he makes coffee without thinking. 2 cups. Then pours one down the drain. Habit from a life that hasn't started yet. Outside, Naples moves like it always does. Half in sunlight, half in shadow. A Vespa screams past his window. A dog barks at its own reflection in a puddle. And in the alley, someone is singing out of key with full confidence. But something has shifted. Not in the city, in him. He steps outside and walks without destination. Not avoiding the usual spots, but not drawn to them either. He walks like someone testing the edges of their own shape. Like a man trying to figure out if the next step is forward or just deeper. He ends up at the small bookstore built above the vault. The place he descended into hours earlier to unlock a memory someone else left behind. The shop is open now, windows fogged, the air inside smelling of dust and weak citrus oil. The owner, a thin woman with one eye that never quite focuses, smiles as he enters. "You look like someone who's just remembered too much," she says. He nods. "Got anything that makes forgetting easier?" She pulls a slim volume from a shelf without checking the title. "Only the ones no one finishes," she replies. He pays cash. Doesn't read the title. Just carries it like ballast. As he steps back onto the street, a man approaches him. Young, unthreatening. Business casual with dirt on his shoes. He speaks without blinking. Romano says thank you for choosing not to use the contents. Salvatore squints. That sounds like a warning pretending to be gratitude. The man shrugs. "We don't do threats anymore. We do forecasts." "What's the forecast?" The man smiles faintly. "Cloudy, with a chance of legacy." He walks away. Salvatore holds the book tighter. Back in the apartment, he finally reads the title, L'onore nascosto, The Hidden Honor. Inside, it's blank. Every page. But on the last one, scribbled by hand, you get to write what happens next. He doesn't laugh, but he doesn't scowl either. He places the book next to the red notebook. Opens the notebook. New page, April 15th. Forecasts, legacy, clouds. We all speak in riddles now. April 15th, 7:10 p.m. The box isn't power, it's permission. He spends the evening cooking. Not because he's hungry, but because normality needs muscle memory. Garlic, oil, basil, all things that don't ask for answers. Then, just before midnight, he climbs the rooftop. The wind is soft tonight, like someone exhaling just past your shoulder. He looks out over the city, still breathing, still listening, still undecided, and slowly, carefully, he begins to speak. No audience, just the sky. I don't want the throne. A pause. But I won't let someone else wear the crown and use my name as the sword. Naples doesn't reply. It doesn't have to, because across the street, in the building with the bricked-up window, a new light flickers on. Different room, different watcher, same game. Many people still think that history chooses its heirs. But what do you think? What if the heir chooses what kind of history to become? He descends the stairs slowly. Every step, deliberate, in the apartment. He places the ring from the windowsill into the box, then closes it again, not locking it, just resting it closed. He pours himself a glass of water, stares out the window, and finally, the stillness wraps around him like a coat he forgot was his. And now, in the soft gravity of midnight, Naples grows quieter. The air settles into stillness, the kind that only appears once the last scooter has passed and the final glass has been clinked in some faraway piazza. The lights in Vico Rosario flicker off one by one, like the city is gently dimming its own memories. Curtains are drawn, old doors creak shut. Even the pigeons, restless custodians of every rooftop, seem to pause in place, wings tucked, heads bowed. Inside the small apartment above the deli, Salvatore Riina Jr. sits still. The ledger box remains closed in the corner, its weight no longer a threat, but an understanding. A relic of what once was and what no longer has to be. The city no longer leans in to listen. It simply accepts. He breathes deeper now, not because he's at peace, but because he's no longer flinching. And as the hours stretch toward morning, and the sky begins to pale ever so slightly beyond the crumbling rooftops, there is no chase, no threat, no decision pressing against his chest. Just quiet, a name once used like a hammer, now hanging like mist, and the man who wears it, not with pride, not with shame, but with awareness. Let your breath slow here wherever you are. Let the sounds around you soften into nothing. Let your thoughts float like laundry across Neapolitan alleys. The day has spoken enough. Let the night do the rest. The sun finds Naples slowly the next morning, creeping between shutter slats and casting long ribbons of warmth across cracked tiles. It brushes against rooftops, glints off wrought iron balconies, and slips into kitchens where espresso bubbles and wakes the old plumbing to life. Salvatore stands barefoot at his window, holding a glass of water like it might tell him something. The box in the corner hasn't moved. The ring still rests inside it. The notebook waits, spine curled open like a question. Outside, the alley is quiet. Too quiet. He dresses quickly, all black. No reason except that he no longer feels like color is for him. As he steps outside, he notices something strange. The bakery is closed, completely. No cigarette in the alley, no flour dust on the stones, no early morning curse muttered about taxes or pigeons. A handwritten sign is taped to the door. Chiuso fino a nuovo ordine. Closed until further notice. Underneath, smaller, barely legible. Guardate altrove. Look elsewhere. He stares for a moment longer than needed. Then he walks. Naples has a habit of rearranging itself overnight. Not buildings, but moods. Today, the city feels observant again, as if pulling back slightly, giving him room to make the next move. On Via dei Tribunali, an accordion player hits the wrong notes deliberately, like he's challenging the street to tell him otherwise. A woman sweeps the stairs of a shuttered gelato shop with such aggression, it's clear the dirt isn't the problem. Salvatore turns onto a side street, instinct guiding his steps now. He ends up at the bookstore above the vault. The woman behind the counter looks up and says only one word. Downstairs. He doesn't hesitate. The vault door is already open. Inside, where once there had been a single box, now there are 3, stacked, labeled, his father's initials on the first, a different name on the second, V. Greco, and the third, unlabeled, smaller. On top of it, a note, handwritten in an unfamiliar script. He carried the fire, you carry the smoke. He doesn't open any of them. Not yet. Instead, he picks up the smallest box. It fits in one hand, light, untethered, back in the apartment. He sets it next to the original ledger. The table is starting to look like a confession booth. Everything laid out, waiting for someone to absolve or indict. He opens the small box. Inside, a single object. A cassette, just like the first. But this one is labeled 97. Riina, Palermo, not for court. It clicks in his chest. This isn't strategy. This is proof. A memory someone buried so deeply they couldn't even trust themselves with it. He doesn't own a cassette player anymore. Not since Bellucci quietly removed his from the shelf last week. But there's one in the old repair shop 2 streets over, where an old man named Carmelo fixes watches and lives behind dusty radio parts. He walks there under cloudless skies. Carmelo looks up from a pile of disassembled clocks and doesn't greet him, just pushes a small silver cassette player across the counter. Already on, already waiting. Salvatore slides the tape in, presses play. Silence, then footsteps, chair scraping. His father's voice, clear and unmistakable. But what do you do, Salvuccio, when no one is watching? A pause. Then the younger voice, his own, barely teenage, uncertain. I don't know, Papa. You do what matters anyway. That's how you survive being forgotten. Another pause, then softly. But I don't want to be like you. And then a sound, quiet, breath through the nose. Could be disappointment. Could be respect. Then silence. Tape ends. He rewinds it, plays it again. The words are so simple, so blunt, but they hit harder than anything else in that vault. He thanks Carmelo with a nod, leaves the tape behind, and walks home. He writes, April 16th. He carried the fire. I carry the smoke. But smoke still chokes. April 16th, 4:42 p.m. I told him I didn't want this, but I did it anyway. That evening, a small envelope arrives at his door. No name. Inside, a card. Black. On it, a single phrase in silver ink. The Queen moves again. Nothing else. No instructions, no ask. Just a reminder that the board still exists, and that someone expects his next move. He pours a drink he doesn't finish, places the card beside the ring and the red notebook, and then, as the sun dies behind the buildings, and the apartment warms with the echo of something both final and beginning, he says aloud, I'm not fire, I'm smoke. I'm what lingers after the damage. Many people still think a legacy is something to wear like a suit. But what do you think? What if it's something you have to burn your way out of, and hope what's left can still breathe? Outside, the street lamp flickers, then steadies. A quiet signal that for now, just for now, the city is listening. The next morning arrives with the slow drip of a leaky faucet and the sound of a newspaper hitting the tiles outside his door. Nothing urgent, nothing loud, but still. Salvatore's eyes open before the sun fully makes its way through the blinds. His body doesn't wake from dreams anymore. It wakes from atmosphere. He makes coffee, only 1 cup now. Outside, Naples is gray again, the kind of soft overcast that quiets the city just enough to hear what people don't say. He opens the door, retrieves the paper. There's no inked circle this time, no markings, but tucked inside the folds, pressed between local politics and an editorial on waste management, is a single playing card, King of Clubs, written across the face in delicate looping ink. You've met the Queen. Now meet the old king. He places the card on the table. The collection is beginning to feel like its own language. The Queen, the King, the ring, the tape, the ledger. If this were chess, someone was positioning him as something between bishop and knight. Useful, mobile, but not quite royal. And the worst part? He wasn't sure he disagreed. By noon, the air thickens, humidity rising like breath trapped between buildings. He walks south toward Quartiere Spagnoli again, back to the bones of the city. He passes a familiar corner where once a gum wrapper held a name. Now the same spot holds a man, older, hat low, reading a book that's too worn to still have legible pages. He doesn't look up, but as Salvatore passes, he murmurs, 4 steps left, 5 up. No more, no less. Salvatore doesn't break stride. 4 steps left. He stops beside a graffiti-covered doorway. 5 up. The stairs creak like they remember who built them. At the top, an open door. Inside, a room with no furniture. Just a single chair in the middle. And on that chair, a man with a voice like gravel soaked in honey. I knew your father. Salvatore leans against the frame. Everyone says that. The man smiles. Yes, but I knew him before he became who you inherited. He gestures to the other chair, the one that's just now being pulled from the shadows by a silent, unseen hand. Salvatore sits. The man folds his fingers, leans forward. I'm not going to threaten you. Not going to offer you money. That's not what kings do. What do? They remember, the man says. They don't move unless necessary. And when they do, the board changes. A long pause. Then, you've shifted something, Salvatore. Not just with your name, with how you didn't use it. Salvatore watches him, careful, quiet. The man continues. There are 2 kinds of heirs. Those who inherit chairs, and those who become mirrors. I don't think you want to sit down, but I think you've become a very useful reflection. He tosses a photograph onto the floor between them. It's a man Salvatore doesn't know. Late 30s, scar across his cheek, wearing a suit that doesn't quite fit. Who is he? He wants the throne. He thinks names can be bought. But yours wasn't bought. Yours was survived. Salvatore doesn't pick up the photo. The man shrugs. Just thought you'd want to know who's coming for the silence you're trying to live in. He stands, painfully. As he moves to leave, he says, Romano's watching. The Queen plays with precision, but I don't. Salvatore stays seated long after the man's footsteps disappear. Then he finally picks up the photo. On the back, GGR Palermo, October 17th. He walks home slowly. The city is louder now. A scooter backfires, making someone shout from a window. A couple argues over laundry. Someone drops a wine bottle, and it shatters without apology. He climbs the stairs to his apartment, closes the door, and lays the photo on the table beside the playing cards. He opens his notebook. April 17, met the king. Doesn't bluff, doesn't build, just waits. April 17, 6:01 p.m. GG wants what I inherited. But he's chasing fire. I've already become smoke. That night, he leaves the lights off. Just one candle flickers in the corner, throwing shadows that look like men in coats and boys carrying secrets. He speaks aloud to the room. I don't want the chair, but I'll decide who sits in it. Many people still think influence is about loud voices, meetings, and moves. But what do you think? What if it's about restraint? About choosing not to burn everything down, even when the match is already lit? Outside, the wind stirs, and far off, in a part of the city not marked on maps, a window opens, just wide enough to watch. There's a rhythm to it now, not routine, something deeper, a cadence, as if his days have begun to hum in the same key as Naples itself. He doesn't schedule meetings. They find him. He doesn't search for messages. They arrive, folded into bread, whispered by strangers, flickered through windows like Morse code played by light. And this morning it's sound. Not music, not words, just a knock, 3 short taps, the kind that don't ask for permission. He opens the door. No one there. Only a package. Small, wrapped in butcher paper. No markings. Inside, a silk tie, dark navy, stitched with initials in the corner. GG, the same as the man from the king's photo. The thread isn't the item. It's the fact that it arrived to his door, with no one seen, no footsteps heard, a demonstration, a reminder, I know where you live. He doesn't react, doesn't tear the fabric or burn it. That would be giving it volume. Instead, he folds it once, places it in the drawer beneath the knives, not under the floorboard. He doesn't give it the intimacy of fear. Later that morning, the doorbell rings again. This time it's Bellucci, face drawn, eyes tighter than usual. He speaks without stepping in. Come down, you have a visitor. Salvatore slips on his coat and follows. The deli is empty. Bellucci gestures to the back room, where hanging salamis swing gently above a small table already set for 2. The woman waiting there wears no disguise. F. Romano. She doesn't stand, just sips from a small demi-tasse. Sit, Salvatore. He does. Romano watches him over the rim of her cup. So, she says, you've met the king, or at least one of his last shadows. I have. He likes you. That usually precedes a complication. She smiles. Well, here we are. She slides a folder across the table. I'm not going to pretend this is a request. It's not a threat either. It's an option. The Queen's version of a peace treaty. He opens the folder. Inside documents, property deeds, ownership charts, names with percentages beside them. At the center, Trattoria Marcella, his old kitchen. I'm giving it to you, she says. Clean, no surveillance, no debt, just yours. Why? Because presence is power, Salvatore. Not violence, not alliances. Presence. And we need yours in the daylight, not just the alleys. He reads through the documents. Everything checks out. Romano continues. Let them come to eat. Let them see your name on the license. Let them realize you can exist in the open without pulling a trigger. He looks up. And in return? Nothing, she says. Then after a pause, at least not yet, he closes the folder. I'll take it. Romano stands, adjusts her coat. As she reaches the door, she stops. By the way, the tie you received this morning? GG sent 10 of them out last week. You're the only one who didn't post about it. She leaves. Salvatore watches the room exhale behind her. Later that day, he visits the trattoria. The sign is faded, but still there. Inside, the kitchen is dark, cold, familiar. He walks through slowly, places the folder on the counter. The papers stay untouched, but something about their presence warms the air. That night, he writes, April 18th. The Queen offers property, not ownership. Optics, April 18th, 11:07 p.m. Presence is power, but absence is control. He opens the red notebook to the first page, rereads the earliest entries, the confusion, the stillness, the longing to disappear, then flips to the end, leaves it blank, a reminder that this isn't over, but it's now his. Many people still think legacy is built by taking. But what do you think? What if it's built by accepting? By knowing when to say yes to just enough. At midnight, the candle on his table gutters. Across the alley, the bricked window remains dark. But below it, taped to the wall where the mortar still shows, is a playing card. Ace of spades. No writing, no explanation. Just an upgrade, a final suit. He stares at it for a long time, then smiles. Not wide, just enough to know he's still choosing the tone of his silence. The ace stays on the wall for 3 days, unbothered by wind or time. No one touches it. No one removes it. And in that strange Neapolitan way, the city acknowledges it without comment. like the whole alley has silently agreed it belongs there now. On the fourth morning, it's gone. No trace, no replacement. Just the mark it left behind. A square patch of cleaner wall where something once declared presence. Salvatore stands at his window with his usual coffee, watching nothing in particular. The trattoria keys sit on his counter, still untouched. He hasn't reopened it yet, hasn't decided if he wants to. Owning something is one thing. Opening it means accepting all that comes with it. By 9 a.m., Gino slips a new message into his espresso saucer. This time, not handwritten, printed. Porto di Mergellina, 2:0 p.m., white boat, no flag. He doesn't ask who it's from. He already knows. It's Gigi, the man in the photo, the one trying to rise not through tradition or fear, but by audition, by performance. The port at 2:09 p.m. is quiet. Most of the fishermen have packed in. The tourists haven't yet spilled over the promenade. The white boat waits at the far end. No name, no flag, just the dull slap of water against its hull. Salvatore boards without hesitation. Inside, the cabin is air-conditioned and too clean. Gigi sits at a small table, a plate of figs and a glass of white wine already in front of him. He's younger than Salvatore expected, barely older than himself. Sharp suit, shiny watch, confidence in his smile. But the eyes are doing all the work. Watching, calculating. He gestures. Wine? No. Gigi chuckles. Too early? Too obvious. The smile doesn't fade, but it does thin. Fair. They sit in silence for a moment. Then Gigi leans forward. I've done my homework, he says. I know what you've touched. What you haven't. That's interesting. Interesting how? You've walked through fire without igniting anything. That either means you're careful or you're waiting. Salvatore says nothing. So Gigi continues. I'm not your father, and I'm not trying to be. But Naples needs more than ghosts and queens and men in chairs watching clocks. He taps the table. It needs movement. And you think you're movement? I think I'm evolution, Gigi says. Salvatore studies him, watches his hands, how he keeps them perfectly still, never clenching, never fidgeting. That's not charisma. That's coaching. Gigi goes on. I don't want a war. I want an alignment. Names like mine, names like yours, they still carry weight. But I'm building a network that doesn't need bullets to enforce silence. Salvatore tilts his head. Then what does it need? Witnesses. A pause. Then Gigi lowers his voice. Come with me, not under me, not behind, beside. The offer lands gently, like a velvet brick. Salvatore lets it sit, then replies. Witnesses turn into liabilities. Gigi smiles. Not if they're all implicated. Another pause. Then, you've been very good at avoiding the chair, at becoming something more symbolic. But symbols get used, Salvatore. Eventually. The boat rocks slightly. Gigi leans back. Think about it. There's room for both of us. Salvatore stands. That's the part you don't get. He walks toward the door, turns once. There's only room for the silence. He leaves without another word. Back on shore, Naples feels louder. Voices sharpen. Motorbikes more urgent. He walks home slowly. The trattoria keys are still there, waiting. That night, he unlocks the door. Inside, the space smells of old garlic, lemon oil, and memories that stayed too long. He turns on the lights. Everything's intact. He walks behind the counter, runs a hand along the edge, then pulls a single bottle of red from the shelf. Dusty. Corked. He uncorks it, pours a glass. Not for drinking, just for presence. Then writes, April 19th. Gigi thinks this is politics. He doesn't realize this is physics. April 19th, 11:50 p.m. I don't need alignment. I need distance. He places the glass on a corner table. No one else is there, but someone will see it. That's how messages work now. No letters, no bullets, just placement. Many people still think the game ends with a crown or a bullet. But what do you think? What if the real victory is remaining exactly where they can't place you? In the alley, the street lamp flickers. Once, then steadies, as if in approval. He reopens the trattoria quietly. No signs, no flyers, no press releases. Just a soft clink of plates. The hiss of garlic and oil, and chairs dragged across stone floors with old familiarity. One table at a time. Only the regulars return at first. Those who've lived long enough to recognize the rhythm of something returning not out of ambition, but out of gravity. By the third night, a man in a gray coat leaves cash without ordering anything. By the fifth, a woman in pearls dines alone at the window and leaves a queen of hearts folded under her napkin. Presence, as Romano said, is power. But Salvatore isn't performing. He's anchoring, letting the neighborhood wrap around him again. Like ivy around a fence that stopped resisting. He doesn't run the register, doesn't wear a name tag. He stays behind the scenes, watching more than speaking, listening more than reacting, just being there. Because in this city, presence doesn't need to shout. It needs only to remain. That Thursday, a package arrives, not to the apartment, to the trattoria, delivered by a well-dressed child holding a phone with no screen and eyes too old. He says nothing, just sets the box on the counter and leaves. Inside, a chessboard, ivory and obsidian, heavy pieces, soft velvet base. No note, just one detail: the queen is missing. He stares at the board for a long time before moving it to the back room, places it beneath the red notebook. Another conversation waiting to begin. That night, Bellucci drops by with a bag of oranges and a loaf of bread he swears he didn't bake. Inside the bread, a USB drive. He plugs it into the back office computer. One file, a video feed recorded that same afternoon. Gigi, meeting with a man Salvatore hasn't seen before, until now, because it's his face. In the reflection, captured in a passing window. He's watching the meeting. Unknowingly, the file ends with a freeze frame. A caption superimposed in red. Now he knows you saw him. He unplugs the drive. Doesn't smash it. Just places it back in the bag and returns it to Bellucci. Wrong loaf, he says. Bellucci only nods. Later he writes, April 20. I've moved past silence. I've become reflection. And now even they are uncertain who's watching who. April 20th, 9:17 p.m. GG plays with position. I play with absence. He doesn't eat that night, just pours wine into a bowl. Leaves it outside on the alley ledge, for the stray cat, or for the ghost that's been following him since Palermo. He returns inside and sits at the counter long after closing, replays the meeting in his head, frame by frame, until one moment becomes clear. GG notices the reflection. He looks up, brief, just a flicker, but not confusion, recognition. And not fear. Respect. That's more dangerous. Respect means interest, means intent, means escalation. The next day he receives a letter, wax seal, hand-delivered, no return address. Inside on cream paper, only 3 lines. There's a room in Rome. The queen is done playing. The king is growing impatient. No time, no location, just inevitability. Many people still think power is about who controls the most. But what do you think? What if power is about who can disappear without ever being absent? That night the trattoria lights stay off, but the kitchen glows. A single pot simmers on the stove. Empty, scentless, just steam curling into the air like a whisper waiting to be understood. Salvatore doesn't leave a note, doesn't lock the door, doesn't take the red notebook. He walks out at 2:03 a.m., towards something, or away. Even he doesn't know. Only that movement now is the message. There's a bus that leaves Naples for Rome at 3:09 a.m. Salvatore boards it without a ticket. The driver doesn't ask. He chooses the back row, the window seat. No one joins him. A courtesy, or a message, or both. The city fades behind him like a photograph dipped in water. Neon dissolving into fog, laughter turning into engine hum. He doesn't look back. Naples has taught him everything it can. Now it's time to see what Rome remembers. He arrives just after sunrise. The station is its usual mess of luggage wheels and bad coffee. A man in a green sweater watches him from the corner kiosk. Doesn't speak. Just lights a cigarette and nods toward the exit. Outside, a car idles. Black. Unspectacular. He gets in. The driver never confirms his name. Just says, "You're expected?" They drive in silence. Through streets not yet crowded. Past monuments still catching the morning sun. Past history carved into stone and rewritten in blood. They arrive in Trastevere, in front of an old building with iron balconies and potted basil wilting in morning heat. Inside, the elevator doesn't work. Of course, 4 flights of stairs, then a door. He knocks once. It opens before his knuckles land the second time. The man who opens it isn't Gigi, and it's not the king. It's Nunzio, older now, slower, but with the same eyes, like history being quietly audited behind thick lenses. "Come in." The room is warm, smells of paper and rain. Inside, a long table. At the far end, Romano. To her right, the king. To her left, a seat, empty, waiting. He doesn't sit immediately. Instead, he looks at each of them, then down at the table. In the center, a file, no label. Romano gestures. "This is your offer." The king adds, "Not for power, for permanence." He sits, opens the file. Inside, a structure. Names, titles, territories, legal fronts, political favors. A full system, already running, already attributed to him. Not by name, by initials. SR. He flips through. It's clean. Too clean. Because someone already did the work. They just want him to bless it, to step in, to anchor it. Romano speaks. "You've proven you won't burn it down. That makes you eligible." The king adds, "It's not a throne, it's a switchboard." Salvatore leans back. "Why me?" Nunzio answers softly. "Because you watched the machine long enough without asking to push the buttons." A beat. Then another file slides forward. Gigi. "His name is on the outer circle," Romano says. "We're offering you the core." He stares at the folders. Thinks about the trattoria, the red notebook, the ledger box, the ace of spades taped to a wall that's now bare. Then he says, "No." A long silence. He continues, "I'll help you build it. I'll even be seen with it. But I don't sit in it." Romano's gaze sharpens. "You don't want control. I want influence. Quietly, on my terms." The king smiles. The kind of smile that belongs to someone who finally recognizes the next move. Romano gives a small nod. "Then let's begin." That evening, he returns to Naples by train, alone. The trattoria is exactly as he left it. A single candle still half melted on the counter. The pot still on the stove. He opens the red notebook. Writes, "April 24th, Rome offered everything. I took nothing, but somehow left with more. April 21st, 11:02 p.m. Influence without title. Control without attention. Let the board move. I'll set the wind." He doesn't sleep. He simply sits in the stillness he now owns. Many people still think the point of a name is to be remembered. But what do you think? What if the point is to reshape what people remember it as? The king has watched enough. The queen has placed her final card. And Salvatore? He just opened a door neither of them knew existed. The morning after his return from Rome, the alley greets him with silence. But not the anxious kind. It's settled now. Observant. Like even the buildings are adjusting to the fact that the man in apartment 3B no longer walks like he's waiting for someone to knock. He walks like someone who already knows the script and is simply choosing not to deliver his lines. The trattoria opens at noon. By 12:07 it's full. No advertising, no reservations, just a quiet ripple that spreads through Naples faster than any headline. Salvatore moves through the space slowly. He doesn't wear an apron, doesn't pour wine, but he's felt. In the way people speak softer near the register, in the way plates are cleared with precision, not haste, in the way 2 men in the corner stop mid-laugh when he passes, like their joke suddenly lost its nerve. At 1:20 p.m., a man leaves a white rose on table 4. No note, just the stem laid across the plate. At 2:05 p.m., a woman in black gloves folds a napkin into the shape of a spade and leaves it standing upright. At 3:11 p.m., Bellucci drops by, not for food, but to place a brown envelope under the bar. Doesn't say a word, just nods once and leaves. Salvatore waits until close to open it. Inside, a photograph, a satellite image of Palermo, marked with 3 red dots, labeled transit points. GG is moving cargo. Illegally, quietly, boldly. On the back, scribbled in pen. He's not subtle anymore. Your restraint made him loud. He stares at the photo, doesn't react. Not yet. That evening, he calls no one. He simply takes the photo, places it on the prep table in the kitchen, and sets a clean white plate on top of it. A message to anyone who needs to see it. Let them decide what happens next, because Salvatore Riina Jr. isn't pulling strings. He's holding mirrors. At midnight, the black phone buzzes. He hasn't touched it in days. The screen lights up. One new message. Sender, unknown. You can stop him or you can expose him, but not both. Choose. He doesn't reply. Instead, he picks up the red notebook. April 22, exposure or elimination. 2 solutions, both traps. April 2010th, 11:58 p.m. GG thinks louder means stronger. But he forgets. Thunder arrives after lightning. I already struck. The next day, a body washes up near Porto di Mergellina, unidentified. But in the man's pocket, a photograph, satellite image, 3 red dots. Police say it's strange. No name, no wallet, just a map. Salvatore reads the news in the early hours, sipping coffee, alone in the darkened trattoria. He doesn't smile, doesn't frown, just turns the page. The phone buzzes again. New message. Well played. That was your last mercy. No signature. But he knows. The Queen. Romano always did appreciate a theatrical fade-out. Later that evening, Salvatore walks the alley again, stops under the window that once held the bricked-in watcher's post. A card rests there again, this time the Joker, taped loosely, as if daring the wind to tear it away. He stares at it for a long time, then removes it, doesn't keep it, just crumples it, drops it in the bin, because he's done playing. And Naples? Naples nods in quiet agreement. Many people still think stories end with victories or deaths. But what do you think? What if the story ends when you simply refuse to let anyone else write it? Salvatore returns to his apartment, lights off, box sealed, notebook closed, and for the first time in years, the silence in the room doesn't lean in. It leans back and lets him rest. Days pass. The trattoria hums, not loudly, never loudly, but with a steady rhythm that feels less like business and more like ritual. The kind of place where people come not just to eat, but to belong quietly. It's never empty. It's never full. It simply breathes, like the city around it. Salvatore stays mostly in the back now, watches through the narrow kitchen window, notebook beside the register. Red pen uncapped, but unused. The ledger box stays closed beneath the counter, the ring still inside. No new messages arrive. No envelopes. No flowers. No threats folded into pastries. It almost feels like peace, until Bellucci returns. Not with bread, not with oranges, but with a book. A worn paperback, cover faded, corners bent. He doesn't say anything, just hands it over and leaves. Salvatore opens it. Inside the cover, an inscription, for the boy who learned how not to disappear. Then, Nunzio's handwriting. The book is Il Gattopardo, the leopard. Again, he's read it. Twice. First as a boy, forced by school. Second as a man, searching for metaphors. But this copy? Different. Pages marked. Underlined passages, most near the end. One in particular boxed in red. If we want things to stay as they are, things will have to change. He closes the book, places it on top of the notebook. Doesn't write. Not yet. That afternoon, a man comes in and orders nothing. Sits at the back, watches the street through the slats of the shutter. Eventually leaves a napkin folded into a crown. No signature. But it's not necessary. Salvatore burns it. Not in anger. In completion. Later that night, the trattoria hosts a private table. 5 chairs. One empty. Romano arrives first. Then the king. Then 2 men in coats with expressions like locked drawers. They eat. They speak softly. Salvatore doesn't join them. He simply passes notes to the server, refills the wine, and listens from the kitchen. No new names are spoken, only old ones with new meanings. At the end of the night, Romano lingers. She approaches the kitchen door but doesn't enter. Just says, "You were right. Not sitting sometimes says more." Then, Gigi left Italy, Vienna, or maybe Montenegro. He'll keep moving. But the circles around him, they're shrinking. She turns to go, then adds, "Oh, and the boy with the cassette tapes? He left a new one. You'll want to hear it." Gone, just like that. He finds it on the stoop the next morning, taped to a bottle of olive oil, labeled simply, "Fathers and Sons, July 1999. He doesn't play it. Not right away. Instead, he walks the city, all of it, from the marina to the piazzas to the narrowest alleys where kids kick cans and grandmothers shout recipes at pigeons. He walks not as a ghost, or a son, or a name. He walks like someone who's given the city something back. And the city, it lets him pass. That night he writes, April 23. Stillness is not silence, it's strategy. April 23rd, 10:20 p.m. I no longer fear my name. I've made it forgettable. That's the trick. He plays the tape. It's short, a conversation between two men. One is his father, the other, unfamiliar. "You think your boy will follow?" the voice asks. Toto Riina's voice is low. "He'll follow the smoke, but he'll walk alone." Click. End. No explanation. No context. Just that. Salvatore sits in the dark for a long time, then adds one final line to the day's entry. He was right. Many people still think the point of a legacy is to be followed. But what do you think? What if the point is to learn how to walk alone and know exactly when not to leave tracks? Outside, the wind picks up. No messages in it. Just movement. And that, for now, is enough. The tape stays in the player. He doesn't rewind it. Doesn't replay it. Because it said enough. And more importantly, said it once. That was always his father's way. Say it once. Then watch. But Salvatore's way? He rewrites. Quietly, slowly, without needing to erase the old words. The trattoria remains open, but now runs itself. Staff rotate seamlessly. A waiter named Luca has started bringing fresh rosemary without being asked. A woman named Morella has taken to leaving chalk quotes on the alley wall outside. Today's quote, "The quiet ones leave the deepest echoes." No one admits who started the tradition. No one questions why it continues. The neighborhood has accepted the restaurant as more than a business. It's a landmark of knowing. A place where things happen in silence, and silence speaks in return. On the morning of the 24th, a small boy passes Salvatore a matchbox. Old, striped, empty, except for a slip of paper inside. One word, December. He flips the box, nothing else. A test? A date? A warning? He places it on the shelf behind the counter. No one asks about it. That afternoon, he's visited by a man in a blue suit with an accent from Torino and the kind of posture that belongs in courtrooms, not kitchens. He orders a bottle of wine, sips once, then speaks. "There's a senator in Milan who believes you're the ghost of Palermo." Salvatore nods. He's wrong. The man smiles, then clarify. "No." Another sip. Then, "You know your name is still an open tab, yes? People are charging things to it every day." "I'm aware. Do you want me to intervene?" "No." The man finishes the glass, stands. Before leaving, he says, "I hope you understand. People will soon stop asking. They'll start assuming." Salvatore replies, "Good, let them." That night, a letter arrives. Typed, anonymous, delivered by hand. Vienna confirms Gigi has aligned with foreign hands. "You were right not to chase. His noise is now their problem." He writes, April 24. "The world gets smaller the longer you stay still." Funny how that works. April 24th, 11:49 p.m. I never chased the crown. And now, no one remembers who's wearing it. He opens the ledger box for the first time in weeks. Not to read, just to add something. A page from the red notebook, torn neatly, slipped between accounts and photographs and old transcripts. Not labeled, but dated April 24, 2025. Many people still think the end of the story comes with applause, or blood, or a quiet door closing behind the last name spoken. But what do you think? What if the end is when no one asks anymore? When the name becomes Heir, the history becomes background, and the man himself simply is. Salvatore locks the box, places it under the floorboards, not to hide it, but to give it roots. He opens the trattoria early the next morning. No fanfare, just warm bread, steam in the kitchen, and a line forming before the sun crests the rooftops. Because here, in this city, in this moment, in this corner of an old and echoing story, no one needs to ask anymore. They already know. The air shifts in late April. Naples breathes in deeper, warmer, like the city is loosening its collar. Tourists begin to trickle in, lost in alleyways, lured by the smell of fried dough, mistaking rust for charm. But locals know. This is when the city sharpens its edges behind the sun. Salvatore moves slower now, not out of fatigue, out of certainty. He no longer watches his window. He no longer waits for knocks. The quiet has matured into something denser than silence. It's become respect. At the trattoria, new patterns emerge. Children deliver napkins folded into birds. Old men leave coins with dates circled in ink. No one says what these things mean, but Salvatore reads them anyway, because at this point, everything is a language. On the last Friday of the month, a new face appears. Young, nervous, wearing a suit 2 sizes too wide and shoes too polished for the street. He orders nothing, sits at a corner table, then approaches just before close. "Can I speak to you?" the boy asks. Salvatore nods. The boy fumbles, then sets down a letter. Sealed. Heavy. "I was told, if I gave you this, you'd know what not to do." Salvatore doesn't open it. He places it gently beneath a ceramic plate. Says only, "You've done what you were asked. That's enough." The boy exhales, relieved, and leaves without waiting for more. When Salvatore opens the letter hours later, it contains 2 things: a photo of a senator from Milan and a check. Blank. He burns both, not out of anger, out of practice. He writes, April 25th, a name used to be a sword, then a shield. Now, it's a filter. What passes through it matters more than what bounces off. April 25th, 11:55 p.m. The city no longer asks what I'll do next. It simply watches how I stand still. He closes the red notebook for the last time, tucks it into a drawer beneath the counter, leaves a fresh one beside it, blank. No need to rush into it. That night, he walks to the harbor. No destination, just movement. Familiar faces pass him. Some nod. Some lower their eyes. One man pretends not to see him at all. All are signs of recognition, of position. He stops by the seawall. The moon is low and full. Boats bob gently in their moorings. Water laps softly against concrete like a mother's hand rocking a cradle. He closes his eyes and listens, not for messages, not for memories, just to make sure the world still turns without needing his permission. It does. A breeze picks up behind him. Someone walks by, drops something into his coat pocket without breaking stride. He doesn't reach for it, not until he returns home. It's a small note, unfolded. No throne, no crown. Still, they all bend their heads. He places it on the shelf beside the burned matchbox, the last cassette, and the folded Joker card. A quiet archive, a museum of near decisions. He opens the window. The alley below is empty, but the street lamp stays lit, flickering gently. Like applause no one needs to hear, the trattoria sleeps now. Its chairs are stacked, its candles melted low. The floor still carries the scent of rosemary and stories never spoken aloud. Somewhere, a dishcloth sways gently from its hook, like even the fabric is exhaling. Salvatore sits alone in the quiet, not waiting, not planning, just existing, as though the silence itself has curled around him like a blanket. The red notebook is gone from the counter. The ledger is buried beneath floorboards, and the world, for once, is not asking anything of him. Outside, the alley hums faintly, not with noise, but with presence. The kind that makes you feel watched, protected even, by a city that remembers what you've carried through it. Naples, with its cracked walls and deep shadows, has accepted him not as a prince or a ghost, but something in between, the space where memory rests. A car passes in the distance, a shutter creaks, then stillness returns, the kind that reaches all the way into your chest and settles there, and maybe, just maybe, this is the real inheritance. Not money or maps or a name etched in whispers, but the rare, rare privilege of leaving something unspoken and having it understood anyway. So now, let the lights dim a little more. Let the last imagined footstep fade down the alley. Let your breath slow. Let your muscles uncoil. There are no more aces left to play tonight. Just this stillness, just this quiet, and you here, exactly where you need to be. Good night. You made it. You're safe now. Let it all go. Sleep well.